Good evening, brothers and sisters. This is SDA Truthbringer, and I'm here with another prophecy update. First and foremost, I just want to say that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is God's church. And despite the fact that the General Conference and the school systems, the seminaries, are corrupted, and that Satan is using those institutions to corrupt this church is still God's church. That's why the shaking is going on, to remove the tares from the wheat. But that's a whole other different topic. The reason why I want to say this is because the burden of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is to preach the three angels' messages. Despite whatever's going on in this world, despite what Satan is going to use to attack the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the burden of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the preaching of the three angels' messages. And the regular line of Seventh-day Adventists are not preaching the three angels' messages anymore. There's no preaching of victory over sin. So God is using the irregular lines, the self-supporting ministries, to reach His people and to preach the message that He wants to the world to hear. Now, before I get into the articles that I have, I want to read a few things from Testimonies to the Church, Volume 6. Volume 6, I'm going to consider page 61. Testimonies, Volume 6, page 61, paragraph 3. It says, "Our warfare is aggressive. Tremendous issues are before us, yea, and right upon us. Let our prayers ascend to God that the four angels may still hold the four winds, that they may not blow to injure or destroy until the last warning has been given to this world. Let us work in harmony with our prayers. Let nothing lessen the force of the truth for this time. The present truth is to be our burden. The three angels' messages must do its work of separating from the churches a people who will take their stand on the platform of eternal truth. Our message is a life and death message, and we must let it appear as it is, the great power of God. We ought to present it in all its telling force. Then the Lord will make it effectual. It is our privilege to expect large things, even the demonstration of the Spirit of God. This is the power that will convict and convert the souls." We must do our work. Our work is to preach the three angels' messages to this world. Time is almost upon us. The National Sunday Law is almost here. It's at the doors. Jesus Christ is coming soon. God needs a people to stand before Him when the investigative judgment passes from the dead to the living at the National Sunday Law. He needs a people to be ready at the National Sunday Law. And that is almost upon us. And another quick reading I would like to do is from the Great Controversy, page 565. Great Controversy, page 565. Okay. "But Romanism as a system is no more in harmony with the gospel of Christ now than at any former period in her history. The Protestant churches are in great darkness, or they would discern the signs of the time." Rome never changes. Even though we think that it might have changed the way that they are presenting themselves now, but Rome never changes. The Roman Church is far-reaching in her plans and modes of operation. She is employing every device to extend her influence and increase her power in preparation for a fierce and determined conflict to regain control of the world, to reestablish persecution, and to undo all that Protestantism has done. Catholicism is gaining ground upon every side, and that quote, brothers and sisters, is true. Which brings us to our first article on this prophecy update. This is from The Guardian. Pope Francis says destroying the environment is a sin. This was on September 1st. Pope Francis has called for urgent action to stop climate change and proposed that caring for the environment to be added to traditional Christian works of mercy, such as feeding the hungry and visiting the sick. Well, we understand and we know that when he speaks of climate change, what he's really talking about, it's a smokescreen. What the papacy, what the man of sin is really talking about is Sunday law, the national Sunday law. So where he says is to stop climate change and for us to care for the environment, he's saying that we must come together to be like the ecumenical movement that he is causing to seek out his plans. It says, little down in the article, the Pope said the faithful should use the Holy Year of Mercy throughout 2016 to ask forgiveness for sins committing against the environment and our selfish system motivated by profit at any price. So here you see what he's trying to say. He's saying that hurting the environment is a sin. What is he really saying? Not keeping Sunday holy is a sin. You see how he's using the smokescreen there with the environment, with climate change. He's saying that if we do not keep Sunday, brothers and sisters, it is a sin. A little more, it says, because of us, thousands of species will no longer give glory to God by their very existence. We have such no right. It says, Francis urged political and business leaders to stop thinking of short-term gains and work for the common good while taking steps to resolve the ecological debt between global north and south. So you see what he's saying? He's saying that the political people and the business leaders must come together and stop thinking about short-term gains, but work for the common good. For them to stop working on Sunday as well so they can promote the Sunday rest that he wants to enforce in this world. Brothers and sisters, the Pope is getting more bold in his declarations to keep Sunday holy. Now he's saying, if you don't keep Sunday, it is a sin. Now continue on. The Seventh-day Adventist Church, the main line, regular line Seventh-day Adventist Church, believes also in the common good. When Pope Francis, when Rome speaks of the common good, Rome is talking about Sunday legislation. And here we see on Sabbath School Net, on August 29th, on the Sabbath School lesson, the lesson that the majority of the Adventists do each morning, on the Tuesday, it says, the church manual reminds us that Seventh-day Adventists should be recognized as outstanding citizens in working for the common good. Brothers and sisters, do you see what's going on? The mainline Seventh-day Adventist Church is saying that we should look towards the church manual as the basis for how we should act and how we should live. Whereas the founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, our pioneers, and every person who stands on the truth knows and understands that our manual is not the church manual, but our manual is the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. The regular line of Seventh-day Adventist Church is in blatant error, and they are in bed with Rome. That's why the Lord has to do the work through the common people, through the irregular lines, because the regular lines are in bed with Rome, where they are working for the common good. They are working for Sunday, brothers and sisters. And if you don't believe me, you can do the research for yourself. Because it's all right there. The main line, the General Conference, all these people are rejecting the truth, are setting aside the writings of Ellen White, setting aside the Bible, and are compromising and are following the footsteps of Rome. Now we continue. Let me get this part 2 of this one ready because I couldn't print out the whole thing. It wouldn't let me. Okay. This other article, it says Catholic and Shia Muslim leaders unite to condemn WMDs and terrorism. It says Shia Muslim religious leaders from Iran and U.S. Catholic bishops say they have a common fight against weapons of mass destruction, terrorism, and violent religious extremism. So we understand and we know that when they talk about violent religious extremism, they are talking about those Christians who hold dear to the three angels' messages, those who hold dear to say and preach that the papacy is the Antichrist. Christianity and Islam, when it mentions Christianity, it's not talking about the mainland Christianity denominations, it's talking about the Catholic Church. In this article. So Christianity and Islam share a commitment to love and respect for the life, dignity, and welfare of all members of the human community. They said in August 18th joint declaration, peaceful coexistence is built on equity and justice. We call upon all to work towards developing a culture of encounter, tolerance, and dialogue, and peace that respects the religious traditions of others. Do you see what's going on here, brothers and sisters? They are saying that we can no longer have these doctrinal differences that separate us, that we all must come as one, that we all must work together to develop and to become as one on common ground, and don't worry about religious traditions of others, and we all must come together in love and in peace. But Jesus Christ says that he has not come to bring peace, but a sword. Why? Because his gospel is a gospel of peace, but his gospel is not a gospel of compromise. We must stand plainly on a thus saith the Lord and call sin by his rightful name. We must give the trumpet a certain sound and preach the doctrines and stand faithful on Jesus Christ and not compromise because people don't want to hurt other people's feelings. No, we must preach the gospel. Let the Holy Spirit work in those people's lives who are living in error, and do what God has called us to do. Let me read part 2 of this article. It says, together we commit ourselves to continued dialogue on the most pressing issues facing the human family, such as poverty, injustice, intolerance, terrorism, and war. We remain gravely concerned by the spread of extremist ideologies, often fueled by superficial and erroneous readings of religious texts. Pause. What is he saying? What is Pope Francis saying? Pope Francis is saying that we must focus on those groups who hold to extremist ideologies, to hold that the papacy is the Antichrist, to hold that the national Sunday law is almost upon us, to hold that the union of church and state cannot happen, to hold on the three angels' messages, to hold on the sanctuary message. He is saying that we must focus on these groups, and it's fueled by, what does he call it? Superficial and erroneous readings of religious texts. What is he saying? The writings of Ellen White are error. The great controversy is error. That's why the main line Adventist church, the regular line, no longer sells this book. But now they sell the Great Hope. I know maybe a lot of us have heard of the Great Hope, where maybe 2/3 of the great controversy is cut out of it, where it doesn't say that the papacy is the Antichrist, where it doesn't talk about the national Sunday law. Do you see what's going on? The Pope is against these extremist ideologies with these extremist religious writings. So the Adventist Church is compromising to fit what the papacy wants, and the papacy is targeting those who say no. We're going to preach that's right no matter what. It says that negate the inherent worth and dignity of every person regardless of religious belief. The declaration said, we call upon religious and community leaders to confront the spread of such ideologies that induce sectarianism and violence. Do you see what's going on? He is saying that these people, the people who hold to these doctrinal truths, the people who hold to these erroneous ideologies, are the ones who are really causing the violence, who are causing the error that is in this world. When in reality, it's the very person who's saying this stuff. Do you see what's going on, brothers and sisters? We are being picked out. We are being pointed at. And the papacy is calling all to point to this group. And we have to put a stop to this group if we want to stop violence and stop error and war that is in this world. Brothers and sisters, do you see what's going on? The National Sunday Law is almost here. Let's continue to the next one. It says Pope Francis holds private meeting with Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. It says Zuckerberg, along with his wife Priscilla Shan, discussed how to use communication technologies to alleviate poverty with the Pope, according to a statement from the Holy See. So do you really believe that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife traveled all those thousands of miles to go to the Vatican to talk about how to use communication technologies to alleviate the poor of this world? It's a smokescreen, brothers and sisters. A smokescreen. Because listen to what the article says more down. It says Pope Francis has met with a number of world leaders in technology. In January, he held 2 private meetings, one with Apple CEO Tim Cook and another with Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google's parent company, Alphabet. So the Pope is meeting with all these leaders in technology, these leaders that deal with the internet and the computer. Why? This article answers our question. The next 2 articles answer our question. Google, Twitter, Facebook, failing on extremism. British panel says. Internet companies, including Google, Twitter, and Facebook, are failing in their duty to block extremist content that promotes terrorism and violence, British lawmakers. So wait a minute. We just heard, brothers and sisters, that the papacy is uniting, trying to get people to point out these people who cling to the true thus saith the Lord, who is preaching that the papacy is the Antichrist in the National Sunday Law. And here it's saying that the internet companies are failing to block extremist content that promotes terrorism and violence. He said that these people who hold to these ideologies are promoting violence and are terrorists. And then Google, Twitter, and Facebook, they're saying that they are not blocking the people who are called extremists, who are promoting terrorism and violence. The Pope is trying to gain control of the internet. He is trying to gain control of the web, to gain control of the social media accounts, gain control of everything, so he can control what is being posted and what is being presented in the internet. So these videos that I'm doing, this ministry that I have, these ministries that other people have on YouTube, where they talk about the papacy being the Antichrist and other stuff, if the Pope gains control of the internet, that is not going to happen anymore. He's going to shut them down. And it says that we are engaged in a war for hearts and minds in the fight against terrorism. The modern frontline is the internet. Its forums, message boards, and social media platforms are the lifeblood, and other terrorist groups for the recruitment and financing and the spread of ideology. So what is that saying? They're trying to control the forums, message boards, and the social media platforms, to control people to not join what they call terrorist groups. In reality, it's the papacy trying to control and trying to dilute the preaching of the three angels' messages. Another article that I wasn't able to print out, it says Microsoft services to crack down on hate speech. The end may be nigh for trolls on Skype and Xbox. Microsoft is launching a customer support service that allows users to report hate speeches. For hate mongers on the internet, Microsoft would become judge, jury, and executioner. So here we see Microsoft doing the same thing. That Microsoft is trying to control what is being presented on the internet. And the last article that I have. The U.S. could give control of the Internet addressing system to the United Nations on September 30th after pledging it never would. So what is this saying? This is saying that the United States government can give control of the Internet to the United Nations on September 30th. Who controls the United Nations, brothers and sisters? The papacy. So when September 30th comes, the United States could give control of the internet to the papacy on September 30th. It says, by the U.S. government, which funded much of the internet's early development, has so far retained veto power. Veto power. Remember, the United States had veto power over the internet. So if it hands over the internet to the United Nations, they, aka the man of sin, will have veto power over the internet. It says, although the U.S. role has been minimal over the years, many foreign governments has complained that the internet can never be truly international if the U.S. retains veto power. So here we see that the United States the papacy is trying to gain control of the internet. And if by September 30th, the United States can hand over the internet over to the United Nations. And if the papacy controls the United Nations, papacy controls the internet, he can control whatever is being put to and from on the internet. He can control all that. And he will control all that if it's given to him, which it will. It says Obama plunges toward internet surrender to globalists, pointing to the UN Geneva's Declaration of Principles, which clearly lays out the UN's designs on taking over the internet. Bergman argues that the giveaway could spell the end of the current era of free speech on the internet as well as free enterprise. So what does that mean? That means that if and when the United States hands over the internet, the power of the internet to the papacy, freedom of speech, freedom of everything will be taken away. And he will control what is being said, what is being put on the internet, on your social media accounts, on YouTube. And this all is going to happen in 3 weeks, brothers and sisters. September 30th. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to reread that quote from The Great Controversy. 565. It says, but Romanism as a system is no more in harmony with the gospel of Christ now than at any former period in her history. The Protestant churches are in great darkness, or they would discern the signs of the times. The Roman Church is far-reaching in her plans and modes of operation. Have we seen that today in this prophecy update? Yes. She is employing every device to extend her influence and increase her power in preparation for a fierce and determined conflict to regain control of the world, to re-establish persecution, and to undo all that Protestantism has done. Have we seen that in this prophecy update? Yes, we have. Catholicism is gaining ground upon every side. See the increasing numbers of her churches and chapels in Protestant countries. Look at the popularity of her colleges and seminaries in America, so widely patronized as Protestants. Look at the growth of ritualism in England and the frequent defections to the ranks of the Catholics. These things should awaken the anxiety of all who prize the pure principles of the gospel. Brothers and sisters, the deadly wound of the papacy is almost healed. We do not have much time, brothers and sisters. Let us get ready to do the Lord's work and to preach the three angels' messages no matter what. Thank you for tuning into this lesson. SDA Truthbringer, out.